porque la matriz está en una matriz, pero es una matriz de tres. Bueno, y aparte también puede ser esto. Tercero es un tiempo. No, pero claro, porque como solo se todo hacia el bruto, entonces el índice de ser un entero.
Our speaker today is Federico, so I don't need to introduce him, but perhaps I need to say goodbye. Federico has been here for more than 3 years, and by the end of January he's leaving for Dresden, so this is probably his last seminar here, his last seminar given by him. He arrived here to do some, stochastic processes and problems of social physics and whatever. He did that very successfully. But sometimes he started to work with someone that only wants to do very fundamental basic physics, statistical mechanics, not even statistical physics. But they ended up working with the lions in the savannah. Thanks for all your work here during this year. We'll have a farewell, but that's your scientific farewell.
I have to say that I was impressed at the IFISC, so I feel really comfortable to be here. And I think I had a really fun time all these years in my lab. So I'm not kidding. Just okay. So I'm going to speak about the savanna problem from a statistical physics point of view. This is actually a project I'm doing in collaboration with Cristóbal and Maxi here at IFISC, and also Miguel Ángel Muñoz in Granada. And these people, Justin Calabres and Walter Green in Leipzig in Germany. So this is a picture of a savanna in Brazil, normal savannas in Africa, you will see. And it's called the Pantanal. And the animal you see here is a nyandu. It's basically South American region. It's a kind of avestruz. Okay, so I divided the talk in 2 parts. In the first part I will basically give you a short introduction about the savanna problem. And then I will basically discuss the model we propose in order to answer the question of the savanna problem. I will focus on basically one of the main issues in these savannas, which is the persistence of tree and grasses. Then I will summarize. And then the second part I will basically apply, or let's say develop another more physics problem, which is the contact process with temporal randomness. This is more related to statistical physics. Okay, so what are savannas? So if you go and Google, you can find a lot of definitions of savannas, but I found this one to be sort of fair. So savannas are rolling grasslands scattered with shrubs and isolated trees, as you see in this picture here of a savanna in Africa. So basically in Tanzania. And also savannas are found between tropical rainforests and deserts. So they are neither desert nor forest, so something in between. And the interesting thing is that you will see that they are always in the middle between forests and deserts. So there are a fraction of trees that they survive and they coexist with the grass. So savannas are found basically at both sides of the equator. Okay, so some places in Venezuela, here in Brazil, of course in Africa, in India, and also in Australia. And they calculate more or less that 1/8 of the total land surface is covered by savannas. So it's and also a lot of human activity happens in savannas, so they are economically important. So just to say a few properties of the savannas, you can say they appear in regions with a large range of climatic conditions. So typically in the savannas, the summer is dry and the winter is very wet, so there are a lot of rains. So what you have is a large rainfall variability. Also, there are other disturbances such as grazing, that basically the animals that they eat the grass. Okay? And also there are fires, and the fires happen only in the surface of the savannas. So they are very, very small fires that they consume all the grass, but they don't manage to kill the trees. Okay, so you don't have to think of huge fires, just small fires in the grass. Also, one thing is that the resources of water are limited in savannas, and this leads to a competition for water. So basically, trees can compete between themselves for water, and also trees with the grass. And so one of the most important properties of savannas is that they have these persistent mixtures of tree and grasses. And this gives rise to what is called the fundamental question in theoretical ecology, commonly referred to the savanna problem. This is summarized in this question posed by Sarmiento in '84. So the question is, what is unique about savannas that allow the coexistence of trees and grasses, while in other biomasses one of the two species dominates? Okay? So typically if you have a biomass, the strongest species will dominate, but in savanna it's not the case. So you see that the grasses coexist with the trees, and this coexistence lasts for ages. So what are the factors that govern that coexistence? So there are many explanations for this coexistence, and they can be grouped in two big groups, let's say. So one refers to it's called niche differentiation. These are basically all things in ecologists know very well. So means that basically so the grasses consume the water on the surface of the soil, while the trees, they have long roots, so they go very deep in the soil. So basically they don't compete for water because the niche are very separated. So because there is no competition, so then they can coexist. So but there was some experiments that they say that actually this is not the case. So they really found competition between trees and grasses for water. So that's for sure. So now this niche differentiation is not taken as serious anymore. So now people are trying to think another explanation. So this is called variant environment. This is the one I'm going to discuss. This is summarized by Scholes and Walker in this sentence. So he said two things in this paper. One is that savannas are not basically stable, so they last for a finite period of time, and also that the mixture persists due to the disturbances, such as fire, also grazing and fluctuating rainfall. So it looks like whenever you have in a savanna this varied environment, this helps the coexistence of trees and grasses. This is not very obvious, so there was a model developed in the 2000 and also 2004 by Higgins and Sankaran. So they succeeded to reproduce the coexistence of trees and grasses just by having this climatic variability, but they have a lot of parameters, up to 40. So it's hard to see what causes coexistence from here. And also it's very hard to read the paper as well. Okay, so now we are doing a more like physics approach. Okay, and so when we try to answer these two questions, so what are the minimal conditions that allow the coexistence of trees and grasses? And the second question is whether savannas are really stable or not. So we are trying to answer this question by trying to study a really simple model for savannas. And the idea is that we start from the basic, so we start from what is called the contact process, and then we start to add some ingredients to the model in order to mimic what happened in real savannas. So you consider a two-dimensional square lattice. So in each side you have either grass or one tree. And the idea is that in one time step you pick a tree at random, right? And then the tree dies with some probability d. And then if it doesn't die, it tries to give birth to another tree in a nearest neighbor site. So for instance, this tree chooses this and gives, it actually sends a seed to the nearest neighbor, and then the seed tries to establish. So there are these two actually parameters in the model. B is the birth probability and D the death probability. And here we're using this property that was measured by ecologists, that dispersion is limited. Okay, so basically the seedling of the trees is to the near neighborhood. It's one of the well-known. Of course, the seed can really land very, very far from the tree, but it's not very likely that this happens. So then, in order to model the birth probability, we said that was proportional to the amount of precipitations. Okay, so and this is because they measure that the average tree cover in the savanna basically depends on the amount of precipitations. So when there are a lot of precipitations during 1 year, then it seems that after some time the density of the number of trees grow a lot. So so that's why we said that the birth probability is proportional to the precipitations, and so we take the birth probability to be the same as the previous year. So we try to change the birth probability every year. So it takes the same value as the previous year with probability 1 minus q, and then with probability q it takes a random value between 0 and b max. So the idea here is that in order to have a model that fluctuates, or some parameter that fluctuates, so we add these fluctuations in the birth probability. So this is a sort of correlation, so it says that from year to year maybe the precipitation doesn't change a lot, but sometimes it can change abruptly. So this is reflected in this random value between 0 and max. And B max is the order parameter in the model.
So what does it mean? You mean that is the parameter imposing order? Or what?
No, it's basically the parameter that controls the order is sort of phase transition. So, yeah.
The control parameter.
Control parameter, yeah. What did I say? Order. Yeah. Okay, so then the death probability. Okay, so here we said that the death probability depends on the age of the tree. Okay, so what happens is if you have very young trees, so with an age less than 4 years age, what happens? It dies, or it tries to survive tries to survive due to the competition with the nearest neighbors. So once the seed is landing on the grass, then it's it's very, so it gives up to a juvenile tree. So the tree is very weak, so it tries to survive. So we said that the probability that the juvenile tree survives, or the other way around, the death probability increases with the number of trees around. So there is a local competition. Okay. So here is the number of trees. So when this increases, the death probability goes to 1. Okay. So if the juvenile trees manage to survive these 4 years, then it becomes adult. So the adult trees basically never die, or they die very, very old. So we said that if the tree has an age between 4 and 100, then it never dies. And then when the age is larger than 100 years of age, then it dies with a probability 1. Okay. So we have this age-dependent death probability. So now we combine all the things in the model. We arrive to this situation. So the birth probability is very small. What happens is there are not enough birth events. So after some time, basically, all the trees will go extinct, right? And the savanna will disappear. So this is the situation here. We have a very dry weather. Then if you have a very wet weather with a lot of precipitations, so the birth probability increases, so you are in a what's called active state. So basically the number of trees reaches stationary value. Let's say for this B will be here, okay? And it stays there for a long time. But now in our model, what we do is we change the birth probability randomly around the critical point, like this. So what we have is basically a system that fluctuates between an active and absorbing phases, active and absorbing phases. And this will give rise to some basically coexistence of tree and grasses. Okay, so that's basically what happened in the model. So let me see. Yeah, so maybe I can show you now an animation of what happened. Okay. So here is they're not the colors of the Barça, but this is actually. So this, the red are the trees and the blue are the grass. Okay.
Green for the grass.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't smart enough to change the color of the grass. Okay. So so what you see is that now the number of trees you see that is fluctuating quite a lot over time, and at some point it will be always zero. So all the trees will almost disappear. But then, because the birth probability is changing, so suddenly the savanna is about to disappear, but then there is a nice weather, so that the trees start to grow again. So that's the situation. It's very low probability, very low density, and then the trees they give birth to nearest neighbor trees, and they start to grow again. So within this model is you have this kind of fluctuating, density of trees. And this actually lasts for a very long time, as you will see later in the model. Okay, so coming back to this. Okay, so that's so this is the time evolution of the fraction of trees in the system, fraction of time. So you see that. When Q is 0 is when there are the birth probability is constant, so what you have is damp oscillations like this. But then when Q is larger than 0, so the birth probability fluctuates a lot, and this gives rise to some fluctuations in tree density. You see that the blue line here is fluctuating, so it's going up and down like this. But then the thing is that these fluctuations are almost killing the system, but they remain for very long times. Okay, so here is another plot that you compare the model with different ages. So the red curve is when you have the trees they die 100 when they are 100 years old, and the green is when they are 30 years old. So basically, adding more age to the trees leads to makes the savanna more resilient. Okay. All right. So then what we studied was basically the patterns that they form in savannas. So you will see that these patterns are very similar to the ones you find in the experiments. So people have measured or took some aerial pictures of savannas, and the patterns look pretty similar to this. I have to say that this model came from another paper we published with an ecologist, with Justin. So most of the ideas of this, the degrees of the model came from that paper, where also you see the similar patterns. So, so now here we'll compare two different times. Okay, so you see that the density varies for, from really low values to high values. Here I'm comparing the model, the same model, but here I have facilitation. So we say now sometimes people say that some trees will protect the seeds. They are nearby. So in that case, the seed established a high probability if they have some trees around. So in that case, there is some facilitation. And the difference is that now the clusters appear more compact, as in this case, where there is competition. And here I'm changing basically the age of the juvenile trees. So you see that now the clusters are smaller in this case. So it looks like varying these few parameters in the system, you can reproduce the patterns you observe in savannas, in most of the patterns. So what we wanted to go further, and what we did is we compare with real data. Okay, so this is so basically they have time series analysis of the ratio between the pollen coming from trees and the pollen coming from grasses. Okay, and and you assume that the pollen is proportional to the number of trees there was in that moment. So they took actually time series of 1,000 years. Actually, we collected this data from a paper. So from year 1,000 to 2,000. So, and the blue curve is basically this tree-grass pollen ratio. It's a place in Kenya. It's called Grayson Island Crater. Okay. But then they realized that there was a lake nearby. So they measured the depth of the lake. So they assumed that the depth of the lake was proportional to the amount of precipitations. So here they can recover that they can actually estimate the amount of precipitations every 15 years during this 1,000 period. And this is the green line that you observe in this plot. So we assume in the model that the third probability was proportional to the depth of the lake. So we took the green line as the input, the green line as the input. And then, so the result of our model is the red curve. So what you see is that there is no quantitative agreement but between the blue and red, but it is a qualitative agreement. In the sense that basically the ratio is biased by the amount of rainfall. So the years that there were, let's say, raining a lot, then the density of trees grew up a lot, as you will see here. And the other way around, with the density where the rainfalls were very low, then the density of trees was low. So this was pointed out in one of the papers, but nobody actually did a model before that reproduces more or less this pattern, this behavior, these correlations between rainfall and density. So, okay, so the conclusions here is that our model is simple enough, but it produces more or less the data. So now, the following thing we did is to try to answer this question about the stability of the savanna. So we focus on the active phase. So here is where basically there are coexistence between trees and grasses. Okay. So the question is, how stable is this coexistence of trees and grasses? So you will see in the animation that this density was going up and down. But of course, when all the trees disappear, this is an absorbing state. The system stops. So the question is, how long it takes for the savanna or for the trees to go extinct. So that's the way we measure the stability of the active phase. So here I'm showing this time, the mean lifetime of the savanna as a function of the size of the savanna. And what you obtain is basically that in the absorbing phase, the savanna basically takes very short time to disappear. Okay, so meaning that tau grows logarithmic way with the system size. But then in the active phase, tau grows as a power law, right, with the system size. So it means that this power could be, let's say, around 1 here. So it means that if you have a very large savanna, then it will take forever to disappear. So we did a rough estimation with some small savannas in Africa, and I think we calculated so this actually depends on Vmax, the maximum value of the birth rate. So we estimated the birth rate, more or less, and the solution was that it would last for 10 billion years. So within this model, it looks like the savannas up to now, if they are forced by these external conditions, they will last for very long times. So, okay, and the other thing we notice is that in order to, so we realized that in order to kill all the trees, you need long periods of bad weather. Okay, so periods where the precipitations are very, very few, so it's very dry. In that case, all the trees will disappear. So you need what is called what we call a rare event, long periods of really bad weather. So in the simulations, you will see that density is about to be zero, but then suddenly the birth rate increases and the density increases. So it's like fluctuating, but stays for a while in that phase. So I arrive here to the first summary, the summary of the first part. So we have this model for savannas with temporal varying birth rates that allows the long-term coexistence of tree and grasses. So within this model, you see that the density of trees basically varies a lot, that it happens in savannas, and also that the coexistence is stable. So trying to answer the question of Scholes and Walker, so within the model, the savannas is stable, and also in order to kill this savanna, you need these long periods of drought. So basically, bad weather conditions. Then now, I'm going to present a second model we studied, very much simpler than this. So we basically trying to see what were the minimal essential ingredients for to have coexistence of tree and grasses. Okay, and that is why we took rid of basically the age of the trees, the competition, everything, but we left just the fluctuating rainfall in the model. Okay, and the solution is that just to tell you now is that you observe the same things. So it looks like the main ingredient will be that some external parameters that change very rapidly with time, or every year. I'm going to show you later this. And the second thing we did this model is that if you see this plot here, so if you're familiar with, let's say, phase transitions in physics, you see that things like this time tau basically grows as a power law just as a critical point of a phase, in a phase transition. But it's really hard to see a lot of power loss in the active phase. So this is something not very common at all. So we thought that there was some relation with what's called the Griffith phases that appears in a lot of systems in physics. So we actually developed this simple model to see where there is a relation between our model and the Griffith phases. This I'm going to tell you now. Okay, so the Griffiths, so it was Robert Griffiths who published a paper in the '69, and he wanted to study basically the easy model with defects, because when they do experiments, sometimes you have impurities in the layers of the magnet. So what he did is he studied an easy model removing some of the sides of the lattice. And he realized that there were some really strange behavior, like for instance, in the normal easy model, the susceptibility diverges in the transition point. And he found that there was a broad region where now the susceptibility was divergent. And this broad region was called, I think 10 years later or so, the Griffith phases. Okay? And so now there are hundreds of papers on this topic. You can Google and you will see it a lot. And here I show you just one of the models they studied. There is the contact process with quench disorder, where you will see the Griffith phases. The model is that you have a, let's say, a square lattice. So in every vertex you put a particle, or so the vertex could be empty or occupied by one particle. And then you remove fraction r of the bonds in the lattice. Okay. So for instance, this particle here can interact only with the one on the right and the one downstairs, but not with these two, because there is no bond. So it's this called what is called a diluted, if you like, contact process. And the dynamics, as you choose, let's say, a particle or a site at random, a vertex at random, if it's empty, nothing happens. If the site is occupied on one particle, then this particle basically, with probability p, creates another particle, the nearest neighbor site. Right? So, like this one here. And then with probability 1 minus p, you remove the particle. So you see that it's very similar to the savanna dynamics. So this will be the tree, and this will be the seed in the tree originates. So that's it. That's the model. So, and what I found was something interesting is that if you consider the case where you don't remove any bonds in the system, you have a phase transition. So with the creation probability is smaller than half, the density of particles basically they die. So they die exponentially fast. So you start with some particles, but then there are not enough creation of particles, so the particles appear. And the time that it takes to for this to happen is very short, so it grows logarithmically with the system size. Then with p is larger than a half, there are enough creation rates, so the density reaches a stationary value from infinity, exponentially fast, larger than 0. And then just like the critical point, a half, this is in the mean field, the density goes as a power law to 0. T to the minus 1 is the power. Now when you add some, you remove some bonds, a fraction r, it's called this quench contact process. What happens is that, so you still have the pure absorbing phase, then you have, of course, the active phase, but the critical point is shifted to the right. So the critical point now is here, it's larger than a half, and this is because you are moving some sides, so you need a larger creation probability to keep a stationary density of particles in the system. Okay, and so between half and PC, there is what's called the Griffith phases. Okay, so the density goes to 0 with a power that is non-universal exponent. The exponent which is non-universal depends on P and R. So, so this is non-universal behavior, and this is what was found in a lot of things, a lot of systems with quench disorder. So the idea is that now in our model we don't have quench disorder, but we have temporal randomness. So we thought at the beginning that there was a relation between this power law you observe in tau with this power law you observe here because of the connection between quench disorder and temporal disorder. Okay, that was what we thought at the beginning. So now, okay, I'm going to skip this. So now this is the model we studied. Now we have the contact process with temporal randomness. So this is the savanna, but the simplest case. So you have the same, the standard contact process as I showed you before. Now so you don't remove any bonds, but the difference is that the creation probability changes over time. So it's not constant anymore. So it takes basically, every time it takes a random value between P bar minus sigma and P bar plus sigma, like here. So this is our control parameter. That's the control, not the order. Okay, so now we did the simulations of this model. Okay, and we obtained exactly the same as we obtained the savanna model. Okay, so the time for extinction basically grows as a power law in the active phase, while in the absorbing phase it grows logarithmically with the system size. And this power is basically non-universal exponent, depends on P. So, okay, and also the critical point is characterized by this basically increase, tau with the some power at the log of the system size. So the conclusion is that here we show that with the simplest model you can think of, which is this contact process with random noise, we reproduce this the stable coexistence you see in savannas in injected phase. Okay, because of this, time grows very fast with the system size. So now we
is that a log or?
This is log, yes. Yes. Yeah.
The log of t versus log of a.
Yes. Yeah. This is just to show that here there are straight lines. So you know, from some system size, so tau grows as n to the alpha. Okay. Actually, with the simulations, we couldn't go very far in the system size, so you can argue whether there are some curvature here in the long end limit. So what we did was basically a scaling argument to show that there are really powers in the tau goes as a power law of the system size. And the argument basically uses the fact that in order for the trees go extinct, you need long periods of bad weather. This is the hypothesis we use. So the idea is that if P, the creation probability is smaller than a half, then the system dies immediately in a time t relax, which goes at the log of the system size. So, and then if you really need to, let's say, kill the savanna, you need to obtain many consecutive times, a creation probability smaller than a half. So you need what is called an extreme event. Okay, so you need this time, so t relaxed times, to drop a creation probability smaller than a half. So this is the probability that the creation probability in one time takes a value smaller than a half, and this is the number of times. So this is exponential increase. So this is a extreme event because this happens very rarely. So this probability, if t is, because it's smaller than 1 and is large, this probability will be very small. So now the time required to see an extreme event by the first time is basically the inverse of this. So basically it will be our time tau. So, and of course, because the relax goes a log of n, then you obtain as this goes like n to the alpha, and alpha is related to p and sigma. So within this simple argument, we show that indeed you have an analytical argument to show that the tau grows as a power law of the system size. And so we were very happy because now it was true that you don't have to run very long simulations to test everything. But now the second clue was to test that if there are power laws in time, as it happens in the Griffith phases, so we needed to actually take very large systems, and we couldn't do that, so we developed a Langevin approach. Okay, so we wrote a Langevin equation, which is this one, for this model. So, and well, the Langevin equation, we have a mini-field term, then some noise that depends on the system size, and then some external noise, some multiplicative noise, right? So the idea was that it's easier to simulate this equation, so you can go to system size that are extremely large. So we went to system size of the order 10 to the 20. Very large system.
Demographic noise is a function of the external noise?
This demographic noise is a function, yes.
Of the external noise?
It's a function of basically sigma, which measures the amplitude of fluctuations in the creation probability. So if you like so the names are basically to basically distinguish between two kinds of noises. This depends on the...
How do you get this equation?
So you start from like a random walk picture, so density basically decreases in 1 over n or increases in 1 over n. with this probability. So then you can write the master equation. From there, the Fokker-Plan equation, and then from the Fokker-Plan equation, you get the Langevin equation. Yes, it's pretty standard because it doesn't matter that p depends on time in the equation. Okay, so you can do the same standard calculations you can do, and you obtain this thing here. The other things I forgot to say that we model this as the creation probability as a mean value plus some noise, some Gaussian noise. So in the model actually was p varying between, it takes a uniform distribution from a minimum to maximum, and here we assumed that the distribution was a Gaussian. So that was the only difference, and we did it just because it was easier to do it this way. Okay, so you write to this equation, and again, so what we did is we forgot about this term because it depends on the system size. So when n is very large, so this becomes very small. So we have this equation with this kind of noise. So it's multiplicative noise in row, linear. And so here is that we realize that even if you take a very large system like savannas, because of the creation probability changes, the density will vary a lot. So actually this noise, it doesn't go away for very large systems. So it's an implicit noise that you have to take into account, and also it's very, very large. So with these simulations of this equation, and we calculated again the mean lifetime, and so we arrived to the same thing. Okay, so also the Langevin equation has reproduces that tau goes as a power law of the system size in the active phase, and logarithmically in the observing phase, and you have a log of n to some power in the critical point. So it looks like the Langevin equation was okay to simulate the system. So now what we did is we integrated the equations and calculated the rho as a function of time, and we found something that was very sad at the end. So the thing is that basically we're expecting some power laws of rho in time, but we found just a power law on the critical point. The only thing is that the power is basically is half instead of 1 compared to the original contact process, but then the rest is exactly the same, so there is no difference between this noisy contact process compared to the normal contact process, at least if you measure rho as the densities or the magnitudes as a function of time. So our conclusion here is that there is, I think, not from this conclusion that there is no relation to the Griffith phases. That's what we think. Just to finish, so what summarizes that we have this simple contact process with external temporal disorder that exceeds this broad region where you have different power laws, and also with this model we realized that the essential ingredient for having a stable coexistence is just a fluctuating creation of particles, and we are still doing some work and trying to find or measure another magnitudes to see whether there is a connection with the Griffith phases. We were actually, so in the original paper by Griffiths, they actually studied the susceptibility and not some temporal evolution. So now we are studying the susceptibility of the model, and it seems that there are some strange behaviors on the susceptibility. So we still exactly not 100% sure if there is a connection with this. So, and then of course this model is pretty simple, can be applied to a lot of systems, because for instance if you have an experiment, it's very hard to keep the temperature, for instance, constant. So the temperature basically fluctuates around some value. So all these techniques can be applied to this model, to those kind of systems. And also, if you think, for instance, the propagation of epidemics, sometimes the the rate of contagious depends on the time of the year. So typically in the summer it's easier, for individuals to get infected, and in the winter is the other way around. So in these models you can actually think that you have external variations of some internal parameters, and the variations of internal parameters given by external variations of something. And so you expect to find the same kind of behavior in these models. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you, Federico. Yes, maybe.
I'm confused in several ways. I have at least 3 questions. The first one is, in the normal contact process, what is called the active phase is already a phase in which you have lots places in the space where you have some the on phase and some places when you have the off phase. Or in this case, you have grass and trees in the active phase without the need of any fluctuating parameter. The normal contact process.
Yes.
And then, do you really need the fluctuations?
Yes, I think
Which
it's
size do you need then?
Yeah, in the contact process in the active phase, the density is constant. I mean, it's reached a stationary value.
Yeah.
There are some fluctuations, but very small fluctuations, right? So it's
So you mean you need the fluctuating control parameter in order to have large temporal fluctuations? Is this what you mean? Or?
yes, it's basically so if this is T, so in the normal contact process you have something like this, and this is the fluctuations are very small. Okay, so but this is not seen as savannas. The savannas actually, if you measure from let's say 10 years, as I show you in the time series analysis, from years to years the density changes quite a lot. Okay, there are fluctuations. So by putting this external variation, you obtain in our model you obtain something like this. So it's a temporal behavior with large fluctuation in the density. So,
the second question is, I'm still confused. In this second simplified model, you have a broad range of power law scaling of extinction time with system size. And you don't have this range for of power law decay of the density as a function of time.
yes.
So it's neither the usual contact process and neither the Griffiths phase. Is this correct?
That's right. Yes. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, something. Yeah, it has some ingredients from the normal contact process in time, but something different of the normal contact process in the time for extinction.
The third question is that you have in the Langemann equation you have written. Do you know if this is to interpret with the Ito or the Statonovich
yes.
case? Because usually when
right.
you do demographic noise, you naturally go to the Ito interpretation. And
yes.
when you do a calculation of an external parameter, you go naturally to the Statonovich interpretation. Then you have both. Do you know?
So we have both Itos and.
I think noise, you forget about it.
So you don't actually. Okay.
No, but I guess in the I mean maybe I'm not getting exactly what you're saying, but in the Fokker-Klein equation we do Ito passage. Okay, I think. So this external noise we obtain is a consequence of the Ito technique. Okay. So
It's quadratic though, it doesn't matter which interpretation technique. We will have separations.
Unless it's constant.
In fact, I don't know if it is a question or a comment on this Langemann equation with this noise that Christopher says that you just forget it. Well, quite a few years ago, when people were interested in noise-induced transitions, they had something that what you would call the fluctuating control parameter, and then look at transitions in the system. And then people were interested to see how this was modified by internal fluctuations. And the standard setup was that you had some type of master equation based on this process, and then some parameter of the transition probability was fluctuating. And that was the external noise put into the transition probably. You see similar to that thing.
Yes, could be, yes. Yeah.
And then, people were looking to what were the effect of these combined effects of internal and external noise. But I don't remember to see ever this Langevin equation with what you call demographic noise, in which this demographic noise appears as a function of the external noise. That's where it was.
Yes, yeah.
That would be you have a square root of y noise. That's right?
Yes, actually, yes, of course, yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, of course you can.
Otherwise,
no, of course you can. I think do a transformation of the equation and combine the two noises, because you have two noises, right? Combine the two noises in one, and you end up with a similar equation. Yes. The thing is, I wrote it this way because then we didn't do anything with the demographic noise because we said it was zero.
We don't know how to do it.
Also because we don't.
That seems a big reason.
Yeah, I wanted to write the equation because it's the one we derived from the calculations. Then how to deal with this equation is different.
and don't lie about Griffith here. It says no relation to Griffith phases. And the paper is called Temporal Griffith Phases, a simple solution of the savanna problem.
Yes.
Just
We change the name, eh?
Yeah, we changed the name, that's right.
Another thing, it is not clear for us because we are still computing the susceptibility.
so they put a question mark at the end.
Yeah.
Now,
Simple solution to the savanna
now
problem.
this is what is called an historical explanation. How?
Yeah, if you don't write, if you put some comments, maybe you don't get accepted, the paper accepted.
More comments, questions, suggestions, criticisms? No? Thank you.
Now we're
You want to
Yeah, what is that?
what it is here is a demonstration made by for high school and elementary school students that visited us, but some full professors want to see that because they you are all invited if you want to see the demonstration.
No, bueno, se ve la posición como una cámara web. O sea, sí, ve el ángulo básicamente. So you see, this is top